I have Chris Sherrington with me, and he's going to go through this presentation and talk to you about a few things to keep top of mind as we get into this spring season. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it along to him. And again, if you have questions, you can type that into the chat box, and we can address them as we go through. And then we'll unmute it at the end for any additional questions that you may have. So Chris, here you go.
Thank you. Thank you.
Passing off the controls. You need that, yep.
Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this new franchisee webinar series, Identifying Common Lawn Issues. And the main purpose, I want to focus on some areas that have come to my attention recently from some of these new franchisees that are out there servicing lawns and looking at some of these hard to control problems and pests. So I've tried to focus this presentation on feedback that I've been given from you guys, and I really appreciate it, so keep it coming. And anything out there question-wise, as we go through the presentation, if you could just type it into this question and answer box here, I'll go ahead and address it as we go through the slides. But the purpose of this webinar, we're going to focus mainly on weeds, diseases, pests, identification, and control options.
Just give it a second, it'll come up. Just double click on it.
Okay, so as you guessed, we'll start with weeds, and this is one of the biggest issues that we see starting out with servicing lawns. And a lot of these properties that you're going to look at are going to have a lot of weeds. So I'm going to focus on some of the main, get the jump start on weeds, and we'll focus on tips to enhance weed control and understanding weed life cycle. 4 winter annuals you need to know, which will really help when you're communicating with the customer. Timing applications correctly to ensure effective weed control. And herbicide selection. Yes, it does make a difference, and we'll go through some of the different herbicides that are available to you to be able to control some of these hard weeds out there. Okay, so tips to enhance weed control. I want to go over and help you to understand weed life cycles. So we talk about broadleaf weeds, but I want to go in depth a little bit more about which broadleaf weeds are out there and what they're categorized as here. So we have annuals, and annuals germinate from seed, mature and die in less than 12 months. And these weeds are pretty aggressive in their growth habit. You'll find them starting in the spring and really being a problem through the summer months. But typically they will die off in the summer or late into the fall, early winter when they get hit by the first frost. Winter annuals, you're going to see a lot of winter annuals coming out in the spring now. They germinate in the fall. So anytime that you've got these open areas from aeration or spots that haven't filled in from summer stress, they mature in the spring. They flower, set seed, and die during the summer. So a lot of these weeds, like henbit and common chickweed, are good examples of winter annual broadleaves. So these are going to be some of the most common weeds that you'll deal with early in the season. Next, I'm going to focus on summer annuals. They germinate in the spring and actively grow during the summer. They flower, they set their seed, and die back in the fall. Crabgrass, goosegrass are summer annual grasses. Spurge and black medic are summer annual broadleaf weeds. So you'll see them start to germinate here in the spring, shortly after you've controlled most of your winter annuals. Biennials, reproduce from seed and complete their life cycle in 2 years. Storing food in their roots the first year and then flower the second year. So wild carrot, musk thistle are common biennial weeds in the Midwest. And then perennial weeds live more than 2 years. They reproduce from roots, rhizomes, stolons, tubers, corms, and bulbs. Some perennials such as dandelion and wild garlic grow actively during cool weather, while others such as Dallas grass and yellow nutsedge grow rapidly during the summer. Okay, so 4 winter annuals you need to know. So henbit here, I've got a really good image of henbit, and you may be seeing a lot of this out there at the moment. So henbit is hairy. It's a winter annual with green to purplish square stems. That's how you can identify it. If you just pull away at some of these stems here that are growing upright, you see it has this kind of pretty purple flower. You can go ahead and identify it if you just hold that stem in your fingers. It should have a square shape to it with all four sides. So it has a fibrous root system and can grow to the height of 16 inches. So it can get very large. Flowers are reddish purple in color with darker coloring in spots in the lower petals. So you can see here it's got this kind of purplish kind of, when it first sets it's kind of red, and then you have some darker foliage here in the lower part of the flower set. Okay, purple dead nettle, it has a very close look to it, very similar to henbit here, but it is quite different. Purple dead nettle belongs to the mint family, and as you can see here from the leaf here, it kind of looks like a mint leaf, which explains why it's so difficult to control. It spreads like wildfire anywhere it can get a foothold. So any of these areas around properties and amongst tree lines, and that it gets plenty of sunlight, it's really going to grow pretty aggressively. Like henbit, it also has a square stem which hold tiny flowers and small pointed leaves. So you can see these leaves shaped here, kind of pointed, and then the small flowers. Common chickweed. Okay, common chickweed is also a winter annual. It has smooth stems and leaves, small flowers which appear to have 10 petals, but are really 5 deeply cut white petals. So these petals here, although it seems like there's 10 there, this is actually 1 petal, and see how it's deeply cut in the middle. And this is a good way to identify common chickweed. Okay, and then clover. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with clover. Very aggressive in its growth habit. It's a low growing with heads of whitish flower with a tinge of pink or cream that show as the plant starts to age. So the beginning stages of a young clover plant is white, and then as it matures you'll see the flower turning from a pink to a cream or a darker color there. The flowers are mostly visited by bumblebees and often by honeybees. So with clover and dandelion, they're very the bumblebees and honeybees actually use them early in the season for pollinating. Okay, so timing. Spring applications are very effective if the correct formulation is chosen. Okay, we'll go deeper into that later in the slides. But trying to get out there in the spring and controlling these weeds when they are small is really important. You're going to get a very effective control using these herbicides on these small plants. Winter annual broadleafs are difficult to control in spring because they are larger and herbicides are less likely to translocate. So translocate is the mode of moving inside of the plant. And during the spring, these weeds, they push all their energy into growth. So everything is moving up through the plant and it's pushing up to mature as fast as it can. So if you're not using the correct herbicide that is going to be more effective on these winter annuals, you may find that they are hard to control and will require repeat applications. Summer annual broadleafs and grasses are best controlled with pre-emergent herbicides. So we all know that going out with these pre-emergents for crabgrass and at the correct time is very important. But if you do miss these applications of pre-emergent herbicides, post-emergent control are very effective in the early summer when the temps are cooler and the weeds are small. So, trying to combat these weeds later in the summer, educate your customers that at this mature stage, they can be difficult to control and may require frequent applications. The optimal time to control weeds are in the fall, early winter. Herbicides translocate well in the fall. So in the fall and the autumn, these weeds, they're pushing all of their stored nutrients down to the roots, and they're really trying to get a good foothold and hunker down for the winter months. So when you treat with a herbicide in the fall, it's going to be pushed down the plant to the roots and have a very good effective control on these weeds, especially some of these winter annuals. Okay, so herbicide selection, I spoke about this earlier. Herbicides are formulated into two forms, esters and amines. Okay, and if you could pick something up today and it really sticks, is esters are for cool weather and early in the spring, and then amines, you're going to go ahead and use an amine in the summer. We will go into a little bit more on which formulations are there, but if ever you're at your store and you're looking for a product early in the season, you can ask for an ester formulation, a product that has a high percent of ester. So ester formulations have a higher vapor pressure, okay, and by that, it makes them somewhat a little bit dangerous to your decorative ornamental plants, okay, so your trees and shrubs, your shrubs especially. Okay, so except for labeled low volatile, if you can find a product that has a low volatile label on it, that's great. And volatile is basically meaning that it's easily evaporated at normal temperatures. So the chance that you spray this weed, there is the possibility of it evaporating slightly and drifting and contacting a shrub that could be close by. So definitely be very careful with these esters if you're using them in spring. During cooler temperatures, esters are more effective because they readily penetrate the leaf cuticle. Okay, the cuticle of the leaf is the waxy surface on top, and using an ester, even in an amine formulation, a product that you would use throughout the season, having that ester in there is just going to be very effective at penetrating through that leaf cuticle. Okay, amine formulations are less volatile, which means that they're less likely to evaporate and hit and contact another shrub or plant that's close by. They're safer applying near ornamental plants, and as the temps in the spring warm up, switch to an amine formulation because they work better during the warmer temperatures. You're less likely to see any turf injury. And typically esters are formulated in a way where they have an oil base, and then amines are formulated in a way where they have water based. So esters have a better mode of action on the leaf itself. Okay, so I included some examples here of some of the products that you may be aware of or have seen, but I'm also going to go into depth a little bit about, if I can find the right slide, about these products and what they contain within them. Okay, so 2,4-D. And we're all familiar with this on the label, on the product label. Now, 2,4-D is an ester, okay? That's a formulation of ester, and the percentage of 2,4-D in a product determines whether it's a very good cool season selection to use as part of your program. Now, 2,4-D, it's shoot and leaf uptake only, okay? Little to no soil residual. So that's something to communicate with your customer, is that these products leave no soil residual or very little soil residual. Good control of basic annual broadleaf weeds. Weed and non-target ornamental injury is characterized by curling and twisting leaves and stems. So if a 2,4-D product comes into contact with an ornamental, a shrub, and you notice that there's some curling on the leaf, that's a good indication that there was a misapplication and that somebody may have sprayed that shrub by accident. Where are we at? Okay, so MCPP, which is another product that you may find within a mix. This is your typical three-way combination products that are available to you on the market. MCPP is a leaf and shoot uptake, little to no soil residual, not allowed in potential grazing situations. So if you're planning on using a product for weed control, and there's a grazing situation where there could be agricultural animals coming into contact with a grass or pasture, you definitely want to refrain. You do not want to be using this product within your mix. Dicamba, shoot and root uptake, short soil residual here. Okay, so this is the one product out of the three that has a root uptake as well. So applying this product that has dicamba and the possibility of a rain shortly after, if it does have dicamba and you've treated for weeds, you shouldn't worry too much, because this product being pushed into the soil should really help. It should be taken up through the roots as well. Soil residual is 10 to 14 days. Weed and non-target ornamental injury characterized by cupping of the leaves. Okay, so you'll see like that cup of the leaf as it starts to shrivel up. Okay, so difficult to control weeds. I've included this table here, and you may be familiar with some of the herbicides here, but I'm going to go through them and just kind of give you a good rundown of what they can treat and how they can help you in your program. Okay, Lontrel here, we'll skip this one. Lontrel isn't registered for residential turf, so it's not something that you can use on people's lawns. But Katana, this is a really good product, excellent control on Poa annua, ryegrass, on your warm season turf. So you can't use it on St. Augustine. St. Augustine is very, very sensitive to herbicides. You have to be very careful with which products you use on St. Augustine, and always read the label. But Katana works really well if you have that zoysia lawn coming out of dormancy in the spring and you see ryegrass, or if you have a Bermuda lawn that has some clumpy rye from an overseed that they did the previous fall, you can use a product like Katana, and that should really kind of knock it out. So yeah, we'll move on to Manison here. These products are really good. It has the same control for warm season grass. You can use it on your warm season turf grass to control Bahia grass and ryegrass and some of the other cool season grasses as well. So this is also a good option. I believe it's safe to use on St. Augustine, although you would want to check the label on that. Drive. Here we have Drive, and Drive's a really good product for your crabgrass at the early stage, so the 2 to 3 tiller stage. And we talk about the tiller of crabgrass when you pull a piece of crabgrass out from the ground and you count how many tillers, how many leaf sprouts it kind of has coming through there. You can determine how mature that crabgrass is. Now Drive works really well on that here. So I just see Kevin has a question on Celsius. Where does Celsius fit into the ester and amine category? Now I'm not entirely sure where Celsius falls into, because I was going to jump onto that next. You see, Celsius has 3 different active ingredients within it, and these are like new age ingredients. So the Celsius was put together for warm season turf grass to be very effective throughout the season. Now, using this in the spring when the temperatures are cool, you're less likely to see weed control, partly because of the soil temperatures and the daytime temperatures. But this is my choice product to use for your warm season grass, because it's really broad spectrum. You've got 3 active ingredients here, which is really great to have in one product and ready to go. You get such great control out of it. We'll jump down to here. We've got Momentum FX2. I'm sure some of you have tried this or have looked at it. Confront here. And then you can see like Turflon Ester. You know, this is a good example of a really good cool season, early spring product to be using. Really just on the cool season grasses. I wouldn't recommend it too much on the warm season grasses. But any of these products, you have a mean here. This is going to be your warm. So they do try to make it easy for you to determine which one to use and which time of year to use it. So most of these products in this area here with this active ingredient are going to be very good to control your really hard ground ivy and wild violet. So to definitely take a look at some of these products if you've got some of those issues out there. Okay, so I included this table as well. We all like to take soil samples and see how, and what problems we have out there on the lawn. But as you become more familiar with these weeds that are listed in this table, you'll be able to look at somebody's lawn and almost identify what some of the issues are right away. So I'll let you take a look at this at a later date here, but I have a good list of what weeds you're likely to see in some of the potential cultural problems that the lawn has. So compacted soils here is obviously going to be an issue. So, something to look at here. You can see high potassium, fertile soils, you're going to have your dandelion. High nitrogen soils, you've got your moist, infertile soils, which is most cases you're likely to see on these new lawns. Okay, so I'm going to jump on lawn diseases now. And this is a really terrible image, just a nice little lawn there, but it's been hit hard by diseases. I included this, this is like a poster, but it was online. But what I suggest you do at some point is contact, this is from Bayer, and you can even go to SiteOne or wherever you're purchasing your product from, and just ask them for some posters with identification. They should have a disease, but if not, contact Bayer or contact some of your local reps, and they may be able to forward you a poster. I like to have one in my office on weeds and diseases, so that whenever I just need a quick reference, I've got something on my wall that I can jump on right away and then go ahead and be able to ID what the problem is. And in most cases, they give you examples of what characteristics of the disease you're likely seeing and what control options you have for it. I want to focus on large patch disease on St. Augustine turfgrass, Bermuda spring dead spot, known as spring dead spot, red thread or pink patch disease on ryegrass, fescue, which is in the cool season market, and then snow mold on cool season grasses. So I'm sure a lot of you have been out servicing this spring, and some of you may have seen this kind of brown smoke ring here and these like large patches of brown, looks like dying turf grass. And this is a St. Augustine lawn here in Florida, and as you can see, it's very, very healthy. And this pathogen really loves healthy, wet soil. And most of the damage you'll see in the spring, it lays dormant in the soil over the winter and the fall months. So if you have a lawn that has shown symptoms of this in the past, we can come up with a program to be able to treat for this pathogen in the fall, and that will provide effective control in the spring, and you're less likely to see this damage here. But when you do service a lawn or you have a new customer that is reporting this issue, I speak about it being active, and this brown ring here, this almost like smoke ring, this is a good indication of the disease being active, and you would want to go ahead and treat these areas to prevent it from spreading even further, because it looks like here's some severe damage that has really taken over, and this is likely to do the same. Okay, so fungicide options. I recommend applying Heritage, Headway, or Pillar. And these are 3 products that are in a granular. You can buy a 30-pound bag, and you're going to use 2 to 3 pounds per 1,000 square foot. So you're just going to spot treat these areas that you see here. You're not really going to treat over here. That's not necessary. And you're just going to hit these areas that you can see. You want to, cover an area just outside of the diseased turf grass, a foot or so. You don't need to treat the entire lawn. Suggest to your customer that they reduce their watering run times and monitor the soil moisture, because that's really going to encourage this disease to spread some more. Oversaturated soils encourage this pathogen spread. Do not apply excessive amounts of nitrogen, and if so, use slow release or organic forms of nitrogen to suppress this pathogen from progressing any further. Okay, Bermuda grass spring dead spot. Okay, you can't see my mouse, can you? How do I do that? Okay, yeah, I was just trying to work out here. Jess had mentioned that my mouse, you can't see my cursor moving over some of these areas, but I'll just keep talking. So Bermuda spring dead spot, this is a really bad case of it here. And what you notice is that coming out of the spring, the Bermuda grass starts to come out of dormancy, it starts to green up, starts to actively grow. But then these large patches just don't seem to grow or green up. This is the same as large patch disease on St. Augustine. You'll find that this pathogen really hits a lot of the crown of the plant and the roots during the winter months. So you don't see that green up and you don't see that brown ring. You almost just see dead turf patches in the spring, and you'll have customers call you about what can I do, how can I treat for this disease. But in this case, there really isn't much you can do in the spring. This pathogen has worked its course here over the winter and over the fall, and there isn't too much that you can do to control it. Okay, the timing of fungicides is very important when controlling spring dead spot. Research has shown that one application in the fall, when the soil temperatures reach between 60 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit, provides the best control. Apply Heritage, and these products are the same again. You can go ahead and treat the entire lawn to prevent this disease from having this sort of damage on the turf in the spring. But you're looking for soil temperatures to drop down between 60 and 80 degrees. So I don't suggest you go out there when your soil temperatures are at 80 degrees. I suggest this is a fall application, maybe after an aeration. You go ahead and you treat this lawn for this pathogen as a preventative treatment. The patches may take a long time to fill in when the Bermuda grass is actively growing. Depending on how large they are, you may want to suggest resodding some of these areas to resod, or actually install some plugs. That may help kind of these areas to fill in more. Okay, red thread, pink patch disease, very common up here in the northeast. We're likely to see some of this moving forward in the spring. Okay, fungicide treatments will minimize the symptoms in severe cases. However, managing the nitrogen levels will reduce the damage that's likely seen. So that's really the main control there for it. Red thread or pink patch disease develops more when the air temperatures are in 65 to 75 Fahrenheit with prolonged periods of rainy or humid weather. So those days when it's overcast, kind of warm and just drizzly, that's when you're really going to start seeing signs of red thread or pink patch disease. Avoid overwatering in the late afternoon, early evening. Snow mold disease, I know this isn't a very clear image here, but snow mold disease, something we see a lot up here in the northeast and up in the Midwest, in some of the areas that get a lot of snow. The signs of it are kind of that once the grass comes out of being covered in snow here, you've got your patches that kind of show up as a brownish grey. The turf grass looks like it's almost been smothered by the snow and melted out. And then you have obviously your turf grass that's growing in place and will fill in eventually. But a power seed wouldn't hurt to be able to go in there and just try to help these areas fill in some more. Fungicide treatments on home lawns is not generally recommended because the disease is rarely going to kill the turf. If the lawn has history of this disease, a preventative broad spectrum fungicide can be applied during the fall. But this is the same for some of our patch diseases that we have on our warm season turf grass. This disease will occur in turf grass that receives high levels of full nitrogen. So over-stimulating the plant, applying too much nitrogen late in the season will kind of help this turf pathogen to really take effect of the grass. You don't want it to be too fleshy when it goes into winter dormancy, so you don't want to overstimulate with high levels of nitrogen. So work up the matted dead turf, because you'll find that the turf lays down and creates a mat layer. It can be very thick and thatchy. You want to go in there and try to dethatch that area. Power seed the large patches. For warm season turf grass, do nothing. allow turf to fill in. When the new growth starts to appear, apply quarter of a pound to half a pound of nitrogen, but do not exceed 1 pound of nitrogen in the spring. So you don't want to overstimulate. You want to apply small amounts of nitrogen to encourage the turf grass to grow. This is going to be a stage when the plant is kind of weak and slow to take up most of the nutrients. So you don't want to exceed 1 pound of nitrogen in the spring there. So a quarter to a half pound of N, and then follow up a couple of weeks later with another quarter pound or another half pound. Okay, so I'm going to go into pests now and fire ant control. I've got a competition going here. Whoever has the largest fire ant mound, just go ahead and send it my way. Right now, Kevin Goldbroth is in the lead here with this one, and these insects are biting and stinging insects. And I'm sure a lot of you have got out there and started to service already, but I just want to give you a couple of add-on information for you and your customers. So fire ants nest outdoors in sunny areas of exposed soil in the lawn. So once you get that thick, healthy lawn, you're less likely to see these huge mounds of fire ants just devastating people's properties. Large mounds can contain up to 80,000 ants. Over time, colonies may link together, creating super colonies of up to 250,000 ants. So a real problem. Bayer Top Choice granular insecticide applied as a broadcast treatment will provide control for up to 1 year. And you want to treat the entire lawn, some of the areas where there's shrubs, and if you have borders, you want to treat them as well. Early season, going back to this Top Choice here, I believe it has to be watered in as well. So definitely within 24 to 48 hours, you've got to check the label on that. I believe it has to be watered in. That's really important. Early season application is recommended for best control and best results. So these customers that you're picking up now and later in the season, definitely suggest that you get out there between November and February and apply this product, and that's going to be really effective the next year. When the mounds are active, a combination of Top Choice and Max Force. So Max Force insecticide bait provides fast knockdown. You pick up a customer next week that's having a party and they've got fire ants, they've got an issue. You may want to hit some of these mounds with Max Force, and it's a bait, and they'll take it back to their colony, and it will control them a lot quicker than if you're going ahead and just using your Top Choice. Okay, ornamental insects. I'm going to touch on this a little bit. They're always hard to identify, so I've included some images of how you can really get close to them if you can and identify what the issues are. Up here we have, okay, so in the top left here we have aphids, and this image is an aphid, and they suck the fluid out of the plant, and when they suck the fluid out, they excrete what's called honeydew. And sorry, Matt, I'll get back to your question in a minute here. When they excrete the honeydew, you can see this ant is pretty much drinking it up, so it's kind of disgusting, but I wanted to include that one in there. Top right here we have Azalea lacebug. And a good identification of Azalea lacebug is this greyish crossband that it has here on its connected in the middle here on its wings. So this greyish crossband here is kind of grey to black, and the actual the wings of this insect are kind of lacy. That's where it gets its name from, I would say. Bottom left, we're going to look at scale. I've got some more information on scale insects, and then over here on the bottom right we have spider mites. Okay, so aphids, pear-shaped body, colors range from yellow, green, orange, red, black or white. Large populations may cause high levels of honeydew and sooty mold. So honeydew is kind of very sticky to the touch. You may wonder what it is on the leaf or actually kind of on the stems or the trunk of trees. And over time, this honeydew will turn a dark black color, and then that's where it gets its name, sooty mold. And you may find that you see this mold coming out in the spring, and that could be a result from honeydew that was left over from aphids in the previous year. Aphids typically cluster on the underside of curled leaves. So obviously this is like a severe case of aphids here in this image, but what you're looking for is that curled over leaf. Check underneath it, you may see some aphids that are starting to damage the plant. Or dormant oils, they work very well, they're very effective when large populations of eggs are found on the underside of leaves. Dormant oils though, you have to be careful. You shouldn't use dormant oils when temperatures get above 80 degrees. Definitely check the label, and it also suggests that you do not use them when temperatures drop below freezing. So if you've got a frost in the forecast, then definitely refrain from using any dormant oils. Aphids are usually controlled by predators and parasites in the early summer. So not really an issue if you do have a customer that reports aphids, unless it's a real high population. Ladybugs, they like to eat aphids, so you're actually taking away a food source there from a ladybug. So, always try to, suggest to the customer, hey, it isn't going to cause that much damage, but we will monitor it, and if it becomes a problem, we can treat and we will control them. Okay, so Matt, you did have a question about how long should you wait after applying Top Choice to let the dogs in the backyard. So, with a lot of liquid applications, we always recommend that you allow the product to dry on the contact area before allowing pets into the yard. Now, when you're using a granular product, something like Top Choice, you really want that product to be watered in, and that goes for any of these products. Like if you're using a granular fungicide, you want to apply this product and not just forget about it. You want to make sure that it's watered in. So it's really important that that product does get watered in and gets pushed into the soil before you allow the dogs, into the backyard. So try to plan these applications around the rain, or suggest that the customer go ahead and irrigates that night. And if they irrigate their lawn that night after your application, the next following day shouldn't be a problem, and they'll be allowed to let their pets loose. Okay, azalea lace bugs. They're lacy with two greyish-brown cross bands connected in the middle. And I'll go back to this image real quick because this is a good one. And you can see here it has this cross band. They're kind of small, so you want to get up close if you are trying to identify if it's an azalea lace bug. But plants in full sun will receive the most severe damage. Okay, so any of these shrubs that are in full sun, they're the ones that are going to get really hit hard. So they occur from New York to Florida and west to California. So a big issue here in the United States. Nymphs and adults suck chlorophyll out of the leaf tissue, causing white stippling on the leaves. So they're sucking away, and on the other side of the leaf, they're on the underside, but on the top there, you're seeing some of these white, kind of yellowish kind of specks and spots on the leaf, and you just want to turn that leaf over and check underneath there and see if you can find any of these lace bugs. Look for signs of damage on plants in full sun beginning in April and continuing throughout the summer. So as part of your tree and shrub maintainer program, this is something you want to really keep an eye on. Insecticides applied through the soil after bloom give excellent control. So once these shrubs leaf out and they're actively growing, you have two control options. You can drench the soil, or you can use a soil injection. And the soil injection is my method I recommend because it actually gets it down there to the roots and to the target area a little faster than if you soil drench. With a soil drench, you would mix the product in a bucket or a watering can and pour the product around the base of the plant. If you're injecting or you're drenching a tree, you want to go ahead and focus on 1 to 3 feet away from the trunk of the tree. A lot of people believe that the drip zone of the tree, the drip zone of the canopy there, that is the area you should most focus on. Well, that isn't the case. The majority of the root masses are actually around the trunk of the tree, and that's where it's going to take up that insecticide to be able to control it. So the reason why we inject into the roots, so it can be taken in through the plant or the tree and taken up through the trunk and then it goes up to the leaves, and then when these insects go ahead and start to chew away on the leaf and start to suck out that chlorophyll, it has insecticide, and that controls them in that way. Okay, scale. You're likely going to see many different varieties of scale here. This is just one example, but they're typically small and rounded, often oval, oyster-shaped. Females usually produce 100 eggs. Sooty mold and yellowing leaves are a clear sign of heavy infestation of scale. So you're looking for the yellowing of the leaves, and then you want to check some of the stem and branches of the trees or the plants to see if it has a scale issue. Dormant oils work very well on overwintering scale. So late in the season, before that first frost, if you want to treat that scale, that's a good time to go after it. Insecticides, you switch over to insecticides when the temperatures start to get above 80 degrees. You can still use those dormant oils, but switch over to an insecticide and apply again through the soil after bloom, and this may help with this pest. So you're going to go ahead and do the same application around the same time and for your azalea lacebug here. So you go after it in April, May time, azalea lacebug. You go ahead and you treat through the soil and you inject. You're going to give yourself a good season-long protection here from these insects, these pests. Okay, spider mites. I have an image here of a rose, and these are spider mites here. Adult mites are small, oval in shape, with 8 moderately long legs. I'm going to go back to that slide here, and you can see that these legs are quite long in proportion of the body. In heavy infestation, leaves turn yellow, then brown, or grey, and then dieback occurs. So first symptoms of it is you'll see yellowing, and then brown to grey, and then dieback. Look for early signs of stippling again on the leaves. So you're looking for that leaf and those little kind of small, almost like pinpricks on the leaf of yellow. That's a good indication here of spider mites. In most cases, if damage is light, natural predators will control this pest. So unless it's a real heavy infestation, you really don't need to treat too much. Reduced risk miticides are available when damage levels are high and the customer wants you to treat. So with moles, this cute little fellow here, he can just really devastate people's lawns. And I wanted to add some information on moles here because up here in the northeast it's something that we see a lot of, especially now. The damp conditions in the spring, they start to become really active. So adults are 5 to 7 inches long with silky grey fur. During the spring, moles are most active during the day and night, causing damage to lawns. Moles can tunnel in excess of 100 feet per day and can travel over 300 feet per day in an existing tunnel. So they move around pretty quick. Mole damage can be described as raised tunneling or soft spots in turf or molehills. They are very easy to identify, and controlling them is one of the hardest parts, I would say. So mole control, it consists of 4 to 5 applications. The first application is to use bait in the tunnels, and then you follow up applications. Once you feel that you've controlled the moles, you follow up with a repellent, and you try to establish a barrier, but that could result in 4 to 5 applications throughout the season, depending on how much of a problem you have there. Okay, I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes here talking about turfgrass pests and what you're likely going to see moving forward on your lawns. Okay, so up here we have chinch bugs, and this is going to be a real big problem on your St. Augustine turfgrass and warm season grasses down there in the south. White grubs, a big problem for us up here in the northeast. Sod webworm and bluegrass billbug. So we'll go over some control options as well as part of this. But okay, chinch bugs. Chinch bug damage is noticed in dry areas of the lawn. The saliva of chinch bugs is injected into the plant during feeding, resulting in yellow to brown areas. Okay, so each female lays an average of 300 eggs during her lifetime. Damage can be confused with drought injury or uneven irrigation. So when you're looking over a customer's lawn this summer, you always want to look at the soil moisture content, but you also looking to see if there is chinch bug damage there. If they feel like they've got a dry lawn, or they've got problems with their lawn, and you notice in these areas look like it's drought stress, it could be chinch bugs. And you're looking really at monthly applications of bifenthrin to be able to control this insect. So over the summer, you're anything from 4 to 5 applications. Once you start to see, it's good to identify. Get out there, look at these lawns, inspect, see if you can find out if there's any chinch bugs actively moving, and then try to set a date. And then from that period, move forward monthly applications of bifenthrin. White grubs, heavy infestations can destroy grass roots, which then allows the sod to be rolled back. So we always see white grub damage, and we can walk over to an area of turf and we can literally pull it up. It's almost like a sod cutter has run through there. Grub damage includes patches of dead or dying turf, visible during the spring, late summer and fall. You may see some grub damage early in the season, around now and moving forward, which you could use a product like Dialox. It comes in a granular form or liquid. You would want to water in that product though, but you actually need to get it into the target zone. Applications I think of up to a ½ inch of irrigation or rain, or rain. So, which is a lot. If you're trying to contact these grubs with these insecticides, you really need to get that product down through the thatch layer. That's why they suggest such high amounts of water. A good indication is skunks, crows, or moles feeding under the turf. So you've got those moles out there and you've got skunks digging up your lawn, definitely hunt around and see if you have any white grubs. Sod webworm. Larval damage is noticed as brown patches the size of a baseball, in the lawn. What you see is with the sod webworm is this insect here, he climbs out of his little chamber and he just chews away at the grass around that area. So you'll see a very kind of stunted looking grass, and that's a good indication that they have sod webworm damage. Most severe damage from larvae occurs in July and August. So keep an eye out. Larvae chew off leaves and stems just above the crown. Okay, so bluegrass billbug here. Damage caused by billbug can go unnoticed during periods of drought. This is a cool season problem for us. Adults do not cause major damage to Kentucky bluegrass. The larval stage caused significant feeding damage. Spotty, straw-coloured patches appear from late June through August. Definitely something to keep an eye out for them. And insecticides, there's a number of different insecticides available for them to be able to control them. And I want to say that kind of wraps it up here. So we'll start taking any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Chris, for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and unmute it. If you can all just do me a favor and make sure you're muted on your side just to reduce any of that background noise and some of that feedback that we get, and then just kind of unmute yourself as you have questions. So I'll go ahead and do that now.
All right, thank you. Hey, Chris, I put one in the chat window, but I've St. Augustine lawn that's underneath some elm trees, and the lady's got seedlings everywhere that are popping up. Do you have any recommendation on something that'll treat that? It's obviously not going to hurt the St. Augustine.
Yeah, I'm going to have to take a look at some of the labels a little closer. I'm sure there are some products out there that will really control it. For cool season grass, we have a number of products out there that work really well, but we're looking for something that's going to contact those hard to control. They're almost like a woody plant, so it has to be, a very good effective product. And St. Augustine, as you know, is very sensitive to a lot of herbicides. So I'm going to have to take a closer look at that and just be sure that we're putting down something that's safe. But in most cases, for cool season grass, if we're dealing with some of the harder tree saplings, I would recommend a product called Garden 4. It works very well, but I'm not sure if that's going to be labeled for warm season grass, Kevin, to be honest.
All right, appreciate that.
The conference has been unmuted.
Do we have any other questions for Chris? It can be on things that he presented or anything maybe he didn't present that you have come across while you've been out there.
And anyone that has questions later, just go ahead and send me an email or give me a call. I'll be happy to send you and forward you some more information on anything that we went through today. Just, definitely send me an email.
Okay, great. So if we don't have any other questions, I want to wish you all a great weekend. Thank you for coming on, and keep an eye out. We'll send the recording of this webinar out shortly. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.